Previously on X-Files, Mulder and Scully work to solve an X-File. Now back to the story. We pick up with Scully getting a phone call from Mulder while Mulder is in the room with her, so either he's the best ventriloquist ever, or this guy is not what he seems to be. While she's puzzling that out, in the Arctic, a U.S. sub, those markings don't look right, but I'll take the caption's word for it. A U.S. sub is picking up what's probably the alien bounty hunter's ship below the ice, emitting weird radio signals. The captain figures that he should talk to somebody, so he orders them to get hold of someone on the satellite. I've never been in the Navy, but I'm pretty sure that in order to do that, the sub would need to be surfaced. Saltwater's a pain to broadcast radio waves through, never mind the fact that they're near a UFO that's broadcasting powerful radio signals. And they're not on the surface right now. Now, how do I know that? Because the captain gets on the phone to call up command, and they tell him to blow it up, despite the fact that this is a cartography mission, so declaring war on extraterrestrials probably calls for someone besides map makers. But they do what they're told and try to fire anyway, only to get zapped by some nasty noise that screws up all their power. So the captain orders them to surface now. And that's how we know that they were not on the surface, because the guy says, that's going to be a problem. The ice here is 32 feet thick. A submarine can get through about 6 feet of ice or so. So is that an American sub, a Chinese sub? It doesn't matter, because what we know they're in is a world of shit. After the titles, Scully has to figure out what to do about the visiting doppelganger, so she pulls out her gun and tries to take control. But eventually the alien bounty hunter whacks her hard enough to fly into the wall. He wants to know where Mulder is, so he roughs her up a little to get her to talk, but when she doesn't, he tosses her into a table. Inexplicably, standards and practices required them to add a couple groaning sounds from Scully to let us know that she's not dead. As if we all expected while the show was flying high, and after a dramatic alien abduction and return for her, that she'd meet her end being tossed into furniture. Not to mention that people die all the time on this show. And I know it's been a while for us, but 4 episodes before this was Irresistible. The one with a death fetishist, remember? Who captured Scully? So, having her be stalked, kidnapped, hurt, trussed up in rope worthy of a porn video, all in preparation for her sexualized murder? That's fine. But tossing her into a fragile table? That's crossing the line, mister. Mulder and his sister show up after they're long gone, and Samantha fills Mulder in on what this is about. Scully is leveraged to be traded for her, because she knows the only way to kill the alien bounty hunter is piercing the base of the neck. And after some frustration on the part of Mulder, who has the rather difficult to reconcile mottos of I want to believe and trust no one, which is a combo akin to I'm on a diet and of course I want to supersize it. So she explains the aliens' agenda. They can't seem to get past the whole looking identical thing, so they're working on a way to get around that, which is why they work in abortion clinics. It gives them easy access to fetal tissue to use in their research. Their colony isn't here to overthrow us, it's to eventually replace us when we destroy ourselves because we don't recycle enough for something. The bounty hunter was sent when it was learned about these unsanctioned experiments, which risked diluting the purity of their species. That might sound a little Hitlery, but keep in mind that there are people who don't even like genetic tampering with their grain, so you can imagine the freaking out if it was being done to humans. So, same thing with the aliens. Mulder and Samantha soon get a visit from Skinner, and with everything that's happened, they're worried it might be the bounty hunter in disguise. Luckily, she's capable of seeing through the deception, so she knows that this is the real deal. The actual bounty hunter has Scully called to arrange the exchange, but Skinner's willing to bring in a sniper to put this guy down during the trade. They get Scully back, but the bounty hunter's got Samantha now, and the sniper's having trouble getting a shot. And when he does, both go over the side of the bridge and are lost. Scully is sorry for Mulder's loss, but she has to ask the inevitable.
Are you sure that it's your sister?
Why would you even question me on that?
Because between the government conspiracy that covers up the truth, the fact that you haven't seen her in 20 years when she was just a child, and there's at least one shapeshifter running around, it's just possible you were being duped. And not the first time since this case started. Mulder's father doesn't take this news well. It's not easy. We had seen in Colony when Mulder approached to embrace his father interrupting the move by holding out his arm for a handshake instead. This is a hard man. and that hardness makes it all the harder for Mulder to deal with the situation. Before he leaves, Mulder's dad leaves a letter that Samantha had left in case anything were to happen to her. It tells Mulder to go to an abortion clinic in Maryland. Get your hand stamped and you come back free the next day. Well, just as he arrives, Scully calls up to say that they found Samantha's body. But the weird part is that it's not long after they pull it out, it starts to melt just like the Gregors did. And when Mulder heads in, hey, you can't travel all the way to a mysterious clinic and not go inside. You'll miss out on the free vivisection. Inside, there's the spitting image of Samantha. And in the next room, more vats and another copy of Samantha.
It was all a lie.
We needed your help. We knew you could be manipulated.
Well, don't sugarcoat it, Doc. Give it to me straight. Man, Patience must have loved her bedside manner. Greetings, Patient 387. I am here to begin the process of dismembering your unborn child. Particularly painful for Mulder was how sincere she was about the whole thing. She even said to him, I have no reason to lie, which amongst all the other lies was in fact the biggest lie of them all. They're concerned because if the bounty hunter survived, he might have followed Mulder, so they want him to protect the original template of all of them.
I'm not your savior.
You must help us. You have no choice.
So, ironically, the abortion doctors are not pro-choice. Mulder basically tells them to go F themselves, which of course is quite easy when you're surrounded by your own clones, but it's all interrupted when the bounty hunter shows up, knocks Mulder out, and sets the place on fire. He must have been thorough. No one else is found inside, which concerns Mulder because right before the alarm sounded, they insisted that they knew where the real Samantha was. But if you've already told a pile of huge lies and flat out admit that you're manipulating him, you're going to need a lot to convince even Mulder that you're telling the truth. After that, Scully gets a lead on the cause of death for Weiss. Remember him? There's a retrovirus in his body, and the thickening was a fatal immunological reaction. The only thing that inhibits it is cold, just like what happened with Samantha's body. As soon as it warmed up, it starts to corrode. Nice jigsaw puzzle, that. It not only provides a clue about the thing that they're dealing with, but it also ensured that her body was preserved long enough to be pulled out and recognized to set up the emotional turmoil for Mulder's scene with the clones, that they tore his heart out and they didn't give a damn. Well, Mulder wants answers, so he hooks up with X, who tells him all the clones are dead, but as Mulder presses him, he mentions the craft up in the Arctic, that a fleet has been dispatched to deal with it, and the bounty hunter too. But that's not good enough for Mulder. He's going to head there personally. Scully gets a vague message from him about it, which worries her enough to ask Skinner, who says this is all out of their hands. Mulder's been a loose cannon this whole case, even by his standards. You should see all the split infinitives in his latest report. So Scully tries contacting X. She doesn't know who he is or what he looks like, but she knows how Mulder does it, and eventually he does show up. Naturally, X is a bit put out when he finds someone else is waiting for him, and he pretends he's here by mistake. The mistake, though, is not helping, because it turns out Skinner was staking the place out and mixes it up with X until the guy gives up the information, probably just so he can get away from all these crazy assholes. Meanwhile, Mulder's in the Arctic, and he's discovered, oh yes, Santa's workshop. No, I'm just kidding. That would be silly. Santa is part of the government conspiracy. How else would he have access to the worldwide wiretap information that determines who's naughty and who's nice? No, Mulder finds the sub from the beginning of the episode. Turns out it had drifted to a thin spot and managed to break through. The place is full of dead bodies, though, but eventually Mulder finds one person alive, the lieutenant from the beginning. He blames the deaths all on the bounty hunter. Well, Mulder's at his wit's end and thinks the guy is actually the bounty hunter, so he handcuffs the two of them together. Problem is, he's right, so the bounty hunter changes back to his default bad guy form and starts flinging Mulder around the room, but Mulder's convinced the guy knows where his sister is. But all the guy will say is that she's alive. Mulder isn't happy with that answer and makes the mistake of shooting him, so now he's being affected by the blood even as the guy leaves him outside the sub and takes off. Well, takes down, whatever it's called, when he goes through the ice. He nearly decapitates Mulder in the process. And of course, that brings us back to where we had come in. Scully finding Mulder in a bathtub and knowing the cold is the only thing stopping him from dying from that virus. She finally convinces them to stop what they're doing and instead use blood transfusions and antiviral agents to help him survive the exposure, while Scully gives a monologue about how, yeah, There's a lot of stuff we don't know and we can't quite figure out, but science is still awesome. Colony and Endgame are major myth episodes and thus must-sees. It serves as an important touchstone, a reminder of why Mulder is what he is and does what he does, and offers a break from Monsters of the Week that will then continue and lead up to the season finale. That being said, though, it's not quite as powerful as its elements suggested that it could have been. It banks more on the wow factor of Samantha arriving than on really forging a strong emotional connection between her and Mulder to make her death and the betrayal hit the audience as well. But the mystery surrounding the bounty hunter was much better. It not only provides a larger picture into the nature of the threat and the alien agenda, but both he and the colonists further emphasize the trust no one mantra, the former through his shape-changing and the latter through their manipulation. The story illustrates the paradox that Mulder is left to struggle with, his innate desire to have his beliefs validated, and those with opposing agendas who lie, manipulate, and obfuscate the truth. The show's tagline of "The truth is out there" reflects that in Mulder, who insists that proof of what he knows and the answers to the questions that he can only speculate about are there, but as we saw repeatedly, a lie can show up wearing truth as a mask, so that Mulder is left unsure what he can believe in anymore, until the end when he says that he's found the will to keep looking.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
She's alive. Can you die now?